Hey everyone, welcome to a brand new episode of Web Dev with Go. Today we're going to learn all about templating and displaying dynamic data. So first thing we're going to do is just explain what is dynamic data. So let's suppose if I have my database here, right? Now my database has certain values like Yassa and John Smith and the respective passwords. The issue is that this database is dynamic. It's constantly changing as more and more users sign up. As a result, I need to find a proper way to display this data on an HTML page effectively. To do this, I'm going to use something called templating. So the way it works is that we first grab all the rows, so from the SQL database. So I'm going to use a struct for this. And then what we do is we loop through every single row, and then we're going to take the username and the password and display it via an HTML tag. So let's start the code. Alright, so I'm inside of my code base now. So the first thing we're going to want to do is just go ahead and create a struct. So our struct is going to be the thing that's going to sort of act as a template for how our data is going to work, like the data type. So I'm going to call MySQL user data. So to do this, just type, alright, user data. So the reason why we're calling it type is because a struct itself is a different type. And you're just going to write struct, obviously. All right, and what you're going to do is you're going to specify all the settings. So I'm going to have two things inside of my struct. I'm going to have my username and my password. All right, another thing I also need to do is just specify the type. So there's a string, and then there is another string. All right, now that that's done, the next thing we're going to want to do is just go ahead and grab the user data. So to do this, I'm going to make a function, all right, because I want my code to be modular. So I'm going to type func, then I'm going to call it grab underscore users. All right, and then I'm going to call it with the type of the struct, which is just user data. Now, the reason why I'm calling it with the user data struct is because I want it to return an instance of the user data struct. It doesn't have to be the name user data, but it has to be the type user data. All right. So the first thing we're going to want to do is just go ahead and open up our server or our database. So just copy and paste this from below. I've already explained this, so there's no point in explaining it. All right, the next thing I'm going to do is just go ahead and just go rows, error, and I'm just going to go ahead and query through literally everything. So I'm going to just go select asterisks. So I'm going to just select everything from users. So now it's going to select everything from the users table. The next thing I'm going to do is just go ahead and check for errors. If error unequal to nil, and I'm just going to go ahead and panic error. All right, the next thing I'm going to do is just go ahead and create two variables. And the two variables are going to be the things that hold the data for every row. So the way that is going to work is that I'm going to loop through all of these rows. Then for every row, I'm going to map the values to the variables and then insert those variables into the struct. So here's how it's going to go. So first, just make two variables. I'm going to make mine var username string and var password string. The next thing I'm going to do is just create what am I going to create? Yeah, I'm going to create my instance of user data. So I'm going to go var user, I'm going to call this user rows, and it's going to be the type user data. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is just go ahead and scan through every single row. So I'm going to go for rows.next. All right, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to scan the rows. So to do this, I'm going to so first of all, I'm just going to check for errors. Okay. All right, and I'm going to go rows.scan. All right, and as I'm scanning every single row, I'm going to map it to the username pointer. And I'm also going to map it to the password pointer because there are two columns, username and password. The next thing I'm going to do is obviously just check for, errors. If error unequal to nil, blah, 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 panic error. All right, now the next thing I'm going to do is just go ahead and go user rows. Okay, and I'm going to append the current user rows, so any data that's already been inserted, and the user data. So I'm adding another struct to it, basically. User data of the what's it called? Username. Yeah, okay, username, which is just equal to username, and password, which is equal to password. Now all I'm going to do is just go ahead and just close out the database. So def for db.close, and then I'm just going to go ahead and do is return user rows. Voila. So yeah, that's how you guys create the function for it. Now what we need to do is just go and head on over into our signup user and our login user. Inside of here, what we're going to do is we're just going to call upon the function, and then we're going to insert it into our template. So this is how it's going to work. So first thing we're going to do is just create a variable. So I'm going to first go into login user, make a variable called user data, and set that equal to grab users. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and execute that. So see where it says nil? You're going to replace that with user data. So the reason why there was a nil in the first place was because that was an option for templating. But now we don't need to leave that as nil. Now we can go ahead and repeat the exact same process for the signup users. So here are signup users. We're going to go ahead and execute user data and put it in here. All right. So now that we've have all the data here ready, what we need to now do is be able to go ahead and template the, what do we do? We now need to template the HTML file. Now, in order to template the HTML file, and what I mean by templating the HTML file is simply that I take in the data we've already generated and I put it into the HTML page in such a way that it automatically just works. So to do this, I'm going to head on over to index.html. The first thing I'm going to do is type in two curly braces, I'm going to type range space period, like so. Now what range does is it takes in all of these structs and it just finds the range, like it finds every single one, like one by one. The next thing I'm going to do is just go ahead and create end, because I want to start here and I want to end here. Now inside of this, I'm going to put in two H1, or actually H2. I'm going to put two H2 tags, or 4 I guess. So the first one is going to be the username. So to access the username, all I'm going to do is just type .username. And as you notice, .username is the exact same as over here. And I'm going to also do the exact same for .password. .password. All right. So now that that's successfully worked, I'm going to go ahead and run this. Go run main.go. All right. So I'm just going to go ahead and open this up inside of my other machine. Okay. Let me just go ahead and minimize this. Okay. So we are now inside of our login page. What I'm going to do is I'm going to first type in my name and then my password, 111. And click submit. And as you can see, we get all of this data in here. Similarly, if I were to create a new user called Jane Doe, Jane111, and click submit. As you can see, we get all of this data. Now, with the uses of CSS, we can make this a lot more prettier, but this is the basics as to how it works. So thank you guys for watching. Have a nice day.